Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how to document your DevOps and development pipeline. First, we'll go over the benefits of documenting your dev pipeline. Second, we'll go through an example to help you understand what to include in this document. Third, we'll go over some helpful tips and a frequently asked question. And then finally, we'll share access to our example DevOps and dev pipeline document, so stay tuned for that. So let's dive in. The DevOps and development pipeline document describes at a high level what each team member has to do to build, test, and deploy a given software release. It's about documenting everybody's steps to achieve consistency, clarify responsibilities, and facilitate collaboration so that the project runs smoothly. Other benefits? This document speeds up the onboarding process, makes it a lot less disruptive if key team members leave, helps to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, and finally, it sets the foundation to help you to scale a lot more easily as the complexity of your development and deployment processes increase. All right, so let's dive into what goes into your DevOps and development pipeline. So this is an example or a sample. It's a sample process for a project of a certain size. It is not meant to be taken as an ideal process. A discussion of everything that should be in a good DevOps process is out of the scope of this video. But the important thing here is we just want to talk about how to document your process. So for your project, how is build, test, and deployment handled? And whether it's ideal or not, we need to understand what's happening. So the first step, a ticket is created in Jira, and we have a helpful link here to this one, which is project specific. So each of these documents that we've created says what to include in a ticket for that particular project because it varies. So before a developer is able to start work on a ticket, it has to be assigned to them. It has to have a fixed version, and it has to be in the current sprint. So if the ticket is ready for work, the developer will move the status to in progress, even if they've just started to research it. Any type of progress should be denoted there so that it doesn't get reassigned to somebody else maybe who thinks they're starting from scratch and they overlook the work that's already been done. So the developer is going to create a development branch. For this, they are going to branch off of testing. So let's talk about, for this theoretical project, how the code repos are set up. So we have a branch for testing in this example, we have a branch for staging, and we have a main branch. So those all correspond to different environments. So the testing branch corresponds to the test environment where developers upload their code for new features that need to be tested one by one and given the sign off by QA. Then the staging branch corresponds to the staging environment where all the new features for release end up going after they've been QA'd on an individual basis. And then the release is tested as a whole. Then the main branch is what corresponds to the live environment or production. So since testing is basically the first destination for a code change or a new feature, the developer is going to branch off of testing and they're going to name it in a certain way. So here's an example here of the commands they use and the way it's structured. So if the first three letters of this theoretical project were MED, they would name it MED dash and then the ticket number. And that way it's nice because we have Bitbucket and Jira linked up so that their commits to this branch number show up on the Jira ticket. That's why we have them stick to that naming convention. But even if you don't have something set up like that, it's just really helpful to know what ticket this work is corresponding to. So the developer writes their code and they commit and push their changes to the repo regularly. And so we specify here that at minimum, every day you work on a ticket, you need to commit so that that work is not lost on your local environment. And here we give examples for how to do those commits. And we again give an example of how exactly the message for those commits needs to be formatted so that they show up in the right places and so that everybody knows what's going on. And so that ideally you could tell like what this commit is about, you know, what did you do in particular there for trackability. Then once the code is complete, the assignee will change the status of their ticket from in progress to under review. And then they're going to submit a pull request to that. It's basically a request to merge their feature branch into the testing branch. And they're going to list the senior developer as a reviewer. And so we use Bitbucket. Bitbucket has some ways to enforce this project-wide that no merges can be accepted into a particular branch until a particular person reviews them. So not only can this be a process, but you can actually enforce it within your tooling itself. But in any case, the senior developer is going to see that and know that the work is ready for code review. Then the senior developer is going to review the code, and they're either going to approve of that pull request if they don't see any issues, and they're going to say, okay, let's go ahead and merge that feature branch into the testing branch, or they will decline it. And it says exactly what they need to do if they decline it. So they're going to outline the changes that need to be made. And you can do that directly in Bitbucket. You can reference particular line numbers. It makes it really easy. And then they need to get in touch with the developer, or ideally the developer gets notifications from Bitbucket that changes are required. So if the pull request does need revisions, the developer is going to go back to step number 4, where they're writing code and go through the process again. If the pull request is approved, we can continue, where the senior developer is going to deploy the new code to the test environment. So that is going to be a process that is going to be dependent on your project. Ideally, it's in some automated fashion where once code is merged into the testing branch, an automated script works on actually deploying that code to the test environment. That's the nicest situation. If there are steps that the senior developer has to take manually to do this deployment, those should be referenced in another document that you link to right here. In any case, once that code is deployed, the senior developer is going to mark the ticket ready for testing. One other thing about this this step, if you have unit tests, it's really nice here to also automatically run them when features go onto the testing branch. So wouldn't it be nice if, once new code is merged onto testing, unit tests are automatically run? Well, that's definitely possible, and this is a great place to do that at before you actually get human QAs and spend time looking at things that maybe could have been caught more easily. So the QAs, once they see that tickets are in a ready for testing status, they'll go ahead onto the testing environment and test them out. And the way they do this is going to depend on your project, but ideally the test procedures they follow are, within a ticket or, within separate a system specifically to house the new test cases. In any case, that should also be documented here, where they actually pull their procedures from. So if the tester finds bugs, we have a process for them here where they're going to create a new ticket, and it's going to be a ticket that blocks the original ticket. And that's done in a specific way by linking that ticket, the new ticket, to the original ticket using the block status. And that's something that's referenced in this other document here, as well as a screenshot to make it really clear. So that new ticket is assigned to the same developer that did the original ticket. It has to be given a fixed version that is consistent with the release that's up for testing. And that way, if you have things set up nicely, your release will show as not done in Jira. That's why we're really careful about that. The assignee is going to be notified that there is a bug. And again, they're going to see it anyway when they get the new ticket, but just in case. And the QA is going to continue testing other areas and features until they're done. If no bugs were found, then the tester is going to mark the ticket as done in Jira. So as I mentioned before, so if there are tickets that are not in a completed state that are for this version, the release in Jira is going to show as incomplete. So you want that to be accurate. If that's the case, the developer is going to acknowledge these new tickets by moving them to in progress, and they're going to start all over from step number 3, where they create their new branch and write code, etc. And if no bugs were found, once all the tickets for this release have been tested and been marked as done, the neat thing is that Jira is going to show that release as 100% complete. So it'll be really easy to keep track of, where that release is at any given time. Once you get to that state, then we're going to think about a pull request into staging, the staging branch, which is linked to the staging environment. So the senior developer is going to submit a pull request from testing into staging. So now all the new features and fixes are going to be all together onto staging. The senior developer is going to review the code once again. So even though they've reviewed everything individually, once it's all merged together, it needs another once over, and they can either approve it and merge it into staging, or they can decline it. And if they decline it, they're going to need to create tickets to remedy whatever issues they found. And they're going to need to go to the appropriate developers. So if they're related to a particular ticket, they'll be assigned to those original developers. And again, you want your fixed version to line up so that release progress in Jira can be monitored. But if no issues were found, then you can go ahead, the senior developer can merge testing into staging. Then on staging, a new round of testing has to be done. So we already know that new features on their own were working, but for example, the first new feature that was developed was tested without the presence of all the other new things in this release. So you don't know that it works now that it is combined with everything else that went into this release. So the testers need to test the new features again, now that they're all together on the staging environment. And the testers need to conduct regression testing to make sure that the new things didn't break existing functionality. So in other words, the product did not regress to a state of functioning less well. And these can be done, so regression testing, ideally, again, you would have a suite of automated tests that get run automatically when the staging branch gets modified. That would be an ideal situation, but a lot of us aren't in the ideal situation, depending on the number of resources or how long a project's been going on. So however regression testing needs to be done, there should be a link here to some kind of documentation on what does this actually consist of. Another thing that may be relevant here is smoke testing. So maybe you do have some manual testing that's done for regression testing, but wouldn't it be nice if you had basically some sanity checks that are done on an automated basis where you take major workflows, really, basic functionality, and test it in an automated way to at least know, is this release in the running for being functional before people actually take their time to run manual tests. So you can have a little bit of both, to deal with different situations. In any case, if bugs are found, the testers need to create a bug in Jira. It may be less clear at this point who the new ticket should go to, because it may be something to do with existing functionality, and nobody remembers who originally developed it. So they're going to assign the ticket to the project manager. They're going to add the correct fix version. And then the project manager is going to be the one to assign the ticket to the appropriate developer, who's going to start all the way over from step 2. If there's not any bugs found on staging, the testers are going to notify the senior developer that they think the release is ready to go live. Okay, so finally, now that the release is potentially ready to go live, the senior developer is going to submit a pull request from staging into main. And remember, main is associated with the live environment. And they're going to list the release manager as the reviewer. So the release manager is going to be another senior level developer who is familiar with what should and shouldn't be going into this release. So the release manager is going to review the code another time and either approve it and going ahead to merge testing into main, or if they find issues, they're going to create tickets, again, using our ticket creation process for this project. And they're going to assign the tickets to the project manager, who then will make sure that the appropriate developer is assigned. And they're going to be careful with the fixed version as well. And these new tickets are going to make the release in Jira show as incomplete. And so each assignee, as they take these tickets, will continue from step 2 way back where they are moving the ticket into progress and creating their branch, etc. However, if no problems were found, the release manager can approve the merge of staging into main. And then the release manager is going to tag the merge with the correct version number using these commands here. And they are going to deploy that code to the live environment. Now here again, it's ideal if this is done automatically, where when new code is merged into the main branch, it kicks off an automated script that deploys those changes live. However, if there's manual steps that the release manager needs to take, those should be linked to here. Also, it would be ideal if changes to the main branch also kick off a suite of automated tests to make sure, just to make double sure that whatever we're pushing live is working. In any case, once the code is live, the release manager is going to mark the release in Jira as released, and then we are done. So once again, this is just an example of how your DevOps and development pipeline could look. There's definitely things about it that could be improved. There's things about it that are already strong. The critical thing here is to document what is actually happening in your own process and to document it in detail so that any new developer and any new QA coming onto the project would know exactly what their responsibilities are and what they're accountable for in your process. Okay, so now that we've gone over in detail what would go into your dev pipeline document, let's talk about some tips and a frequently asked question. So for tips, review this document at least every few months and make sure it's up to date with any changes you've made in your tooling, your processes, or your team structure. And also check it to make sure that there's no process improvements that should be made. Second, keep it accessible to all team members and keep it under version control. Make sure that the whole team knows about it and they've also provided their feedback on it. What do they think could use clarification? What do they think might be improved about the process itself? Third, include links to other relevant documents and tools. And for this one, I'm going to share my screen and show an example. So here, this is actually the pipeline we have that on this certain project, when changes are merged into the master branch on the front end, it automatically will deploy to our live front end. So isn't that great then to link to it so that people can actually see this who need to see it? Other things that are nice to link to are pull request areas, branches, etc., and other documentation. So for example, we have a document on how to create a JIRA ticket for each of our projects because different things need to be included in our tickets for each of our projects. So link to helpful things like that to really make this document worthwhile. Then next tip, document rationale where it's appropriate. So it's really nice to know not only what should be done, but why was, what were the pros and cons or rationale for setting it up the way it is. Then finally, a frequently asked question. So what if you just have one developer? What if it's such a small team that the startup founder is the closest thing there is to a tester or a project manager? Do we still need this document? Yes, you still need this document, and actually most of it will still apply. So one developer's work should still be managed in some kind of project management tool so that you can monitor their progress. One developer should still be regularly pushing their work to a code repo for safekeeping and using proper branch management for a number of reasons. Once anyone else is testing or using the system, even if it's just you and you're, the company founder, you're still going to need to have multiple environments, right? So at the very least, the developer is going to need their local environment as well as a somewhat stable environment so that you or other people can check out what's been happening and new features. So since there's going to be multiple environments, even for a very small team, there's still going to need to be a process for when and how your developer will deploy changes to each of those environments. And one developer also still needs to have some kind of test process. Even if aspects of their process are not ideal, and testing is usually the wink link here, it's important to understand what their process is. And documenting a process is also somewhat likely to improve it because it shines a spotlight on things that are vague or haphazard, and it's a really good opportunity to get things more consistent. So this is also why we recommend creating this document before any development occurs, even with a really small team. So I'm going to go ahead now and share access to the sample dev pipeline document that I went through earlier. So here it is. For your, it's not exactly a template, but you can certainly look to it for an example of how you can structure this document and what to include. Then in addition, please like and subscribe this video if it was helpful to you, because this is just the third in a series of how-to videos that we're creating on creating project documentation for software projects and especially SaaS systems. So stay tuned for more videos like this one. Also check out the other 2 videos in the series, and thanks for tuning in.